foothold on the election would say before he was elected, if I'm elected, I put a black woman on the Supreme Court if given the chance. I nominate a black woman. So that's how we get to where we're now. That's not unlike what Donald Trump did, is it?
Or even Reagan with Sandra O'Connor. Here's the thing.
But Reagan was hold on for a minute. Now Reagan, you don't get away with throwing Reagan and Biden together, because when Reagan did that, it had only always been white men.
Well, he said he needed a woman. The only issue that people have to, I'll be honest with you. You've had a conservative white woman. You've had another extremely conservative white woman with Amy Barrett or whatever the latest name on there now.
Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah, you have a Hispanic on there. So it was time for a black female. Now, I'll be honest with you, the way the Republican extremists have taken over our party now, that if people were expecting them to appoint a black female, wasn't going to happen. And I'll go further to say that if Clarence Thomas retires or whatever, that and the Republicans in office, they won't appoint a black man to take his place.
Well, I'm not going to go.
I'm just saying.
Peastradamus, because I know you do all these predictions about.
Well, it's coming true.
Things.
A lot of stuff coming true.
I mean, our own version here, but let me back. Let's do the things that we know of. So Biden says it about a woman, but the reason Reagan said that was a woman had never served.
That's
ever.
Correct. That's right.
And you were in a time when women were really asserting their presence politically. They weren't in office like they are now, but they were physically in the ballot. So he understood, hey, for my Republican conservative base, putting this out that I will, nominate a black a woman was big, because it had always been all men. Now we don't have that situation now. That's a gender piece. So she's not breaking any gender barriers now by putting a black woman. Well, we already had a woman. You already had a black person. I mean, the next, what do we have? Like, I don't know, a Pacific Islander under 5 feet. Well, these physical demographics sometimes don't lead to philosophical and that's what the issue with the Clarence Thomas. He looked black. He probably he meets the demographics, but his ideology is not. Isn't the ideology of the person most important than their physical characteristics?
Well, because the way the state of the black community is, as I told you before, the two worst people we have that represent us now is Tim Scott and Clarence Thomas. And people say, well, Tim Scott, the lady, Miss Childs, who may be nominated for
Michelle Childs.
Okay.
University of South Florida graduate, 1988, exceptional member of the Zeta Upsilon chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority at the University of South Florida.
Look at this. Lindsey Graham came out and said, hey, and these guys talk off the record all the time. He says, hey, I'm full support of Michelle Childs. Tim Scott said something less similar than that. Then he comes back, Darrell, and he says, well, I got to look at her record, and if it's not right, I may not vote for her. Well, here's something. Of all the judges of people of color that Biden have nominated and gone on to judgeships this year, Tim Scott has voted against every one of them.
Now, what's the surprise in that? Is that a surprise?
No, but I have to. The reason why I say that, because we have, and some of them been women. So when you talk about a brother supporting a sister, we have to teach our kids that all brothers won't support a sister as quick as they may support a white woman in the same position. That's just keeping it real. And I tell young people all the time, the black community is not monolithic, and so we have to teach that as part of our history as we move forward and all. Now, you go back to saying, well, the Democratic black women are the most steadiest group or whatever. But when you look at it, what have they benefited from it consistently? And what strength have the black community gained consistently from their vote? Because if they can't get other coalitions to go with them, then we're in trouble. And so a lot of people, they look at the black women vote, but they look at the upper echelon black women voters, and they don't connect with the working moms and the poor moms in our community. And we don't like to talk about stuff like that, but that's the reality of it. So that's why the Democratic Party use them, and they don't benefit from it because it's all upper class black women that may get a few tokens of nominations or whatever the case may be. But the majority of sisters that I talk to that are struggling, the working poor, the blue collar ones, the ones trying to get in the Head Start and all like that, they realize that there's a gap. There's a bitter gap between upper class black women voters and middle class and poor women black voters.
That's the world, though.
Well, I'm
That's the
concerned
world.
about I'm concerned about how it fits in with the progress of American blacks moving forward, because we're going backwards and what a lot of things, because we don't have coalition building even within our own community, and we don't like to talk about it.
Yeah, but you have to have to build coalitions. You have to have the issues that let you build people collectively together. That's the one thing. And if you don't have those, and so a lot of those issues are gone. It's hard to fight about school desegregation when the schools are, let's say, 85% desegregated. That number is the diminished number. Or you say, well, housing fairness and equity. It's tough when you have a plethora of opportunities for people to get into home ownership, to galvanize people around the issue of I've checked all the boxes and I still can't get a loan. It used to be you had a job, good credit, and money, you still couldn't get a loan to buy a house. Why? You're a red line. But now, if you have those things, good credit, decent employment, and a little bit of money to put down, there are programs out there to help you get a home. Now, let me change that. You're a convicted criminal. You have horrible credit. You hadn't worked in the last 10 years, right? And you don't have any viable funds that you can put in the game. It's much tougher to get yourself a loan for a house. Those are just realities of it. So the idea that we can galvanize people now, we have to have circumstances give us that. A George Floyd. That gives it to you. The problem you have now, the people that are most struggling are the people who don't have the wherewithal and abilities to access the opportunities that have been created for them.
Well, I tell you what, when you talk about all that, and then you talk about this galvanization for this Supreme Court nominee, whoever it may be, I don't think it's going to be her.
Who do you think it's going to be?
I think what they really want to do is, if they can't bring in Katanya Jackson, I think they want to bring in the lady from the Supreme Court of
California.
California.
Now tell me now, politically, what good is either one of those two? Michelle is the one that's politically most powerful.
But the problem is with that, that's not where the Democratic Party want to go as far as building towards another
Watch this, Pete. Try this out. If the Democratic Party doesn't win South Carolina, it don't win the presidency. It doesn't have a chance.
But the payoff is not going to be there. Look, if I'm Biden, and I'm thinking about it from, let's say if I switch and I was Biden, I said, okay, I'm going to appoint a black woman. But I have to look at the whole political picture. If I appointed the woman from California, to me, that would help enhance the progressives voting for me versus
progressives where? In California?
No, in the Democratic Party.
But no. This thing is actually regional, Pete. That's why Lindsey Graham came out and said, hey, I'm with Childs. You know why? She's from South Carolina.
Well, you look at her background. If you look at her background, I've been reading the state. If you want to see the best view of South Carolina, I urge you to read two major newspapers in South Carolina. The State, which is the number one newspaper right out of Columbia, South Carolina. People don't realize that Columbia, South Carolina, got a lot of black influence there locally. And then I recommend that you read the Orangeburg News, which is, of course, right down the street from South Carolina State. I'm telling you that it will not be this lady nomination. And the reason being is that Biden he doesn't want to seem like he's controlled with everything by Jim Clyburn. Number one. Two, there are a lot of people who, when they look at this lady's overall track record with business firms and the state, whatever commission she served on and all, that's a little bit too much for the, quote, upper echelon of black women to swallow, because she's basically a go-by-the-book judge.
She's more moderate than you would
right,
expect.
right.
But I think that's her selling point. Let me say this right now, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to anybody Republican. We could care less what they think or feel about this vote. You have no influence and no say.
She will not.
Hold on. But let me say this to my Republican friends who might be thinking, okay, here's how our ideas factor in. After what you all did, bastardizing the process under Donald Trump, throwing out all sense of due diligence and consideration, could care less. And there is no Democrat with the nerve to not vote for whoever Biden nominates. Every one of them has a sign. Even our buddy from West Virginia, who very quickly came out and said, "Hey, I'm good. Whatever he said, I'm good. What he says." Christian Cinema, same thing.
Well, let's see what this caller says about that before we move on to.
I don't want any callers taking shots at Republicans in light of this. But caller, go ahead. You're on with In Touch News Radio, reality radio, where everybody can be a star. What is your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, good morning, good attorney, Mr. Edwards. This is Carl. I want to chime in on your discussion here. I think Biden's going to go with Charles from South Carolina. He needs this agenda to pass. I mean, he needs this to get the judge confirmed, and he's going to use where he can. But I mean, I don't blame you. And with Clyburn, with his clout and his push, I mean, why not go with Charles?
Well, it looks that way on the surface, but I my gut feeling and reviewing all this stuff, and I stay on top of this stuff a lot. I don't think she's going to be able to get.
And then you also got a Republican, Lindsey Graham.
Well, he will, but remember what Tim Scott said recently. He said, "I may not vote for her anyway."
Whatever Lindsey Graham does, he's gonna go along with it.
Wow, Carl, man, you could throw you hailing Tim Scott. I mean, wait a minute, you call him a do boy?
That's what he is.
Yeah, he's a do boy.
He trying to line his pockets. Now, see, we have this issue, and Carl, I think you'll agree. Most people in America politically are either center or right of center. In the black community, we've always been a little right of center, kind of conservative, build up our own neighborhoods, whatever the case may be. But when you look at people like Tim Scott and those kind of folks, we can't do nothing with them. So it look like we're gonna be heading out to a break right quick. Am I right? And Carl, we're gonna go to lunch on Clint's dime after this appointment. Don't just remember that. So you're on In Touch Radio News and all like that, and we'll see you right after the break on a beautiful, balmy, nice Saturday morning, flea market, early morning breakfast. Brothers get up and cook a sister something to eat. Fresh food now. No McDonald's and that fresh food. We'll be right back.
By now, we're all aware of the dangers of COVID-19. Like others with existing health issues, cancer patients are at a high risk due to their compromised condition. If you are newly diagnosed with cancer, your care likely can't wait. Moffitt Cancer Center is the best place for your cancer concerns and to provide guidance to help you plan your next steps. We're here for you. Call 1-888-456-2839 or go to moffitt.org/here-for-you.
Hi, I'm Donald L. Dowridge Jr., your motivational guru. This is the DLD Motivational Moment. You got up this morning. You got up this morning. Eyes sneaking open as the feet hit the floor. Got to thank God for the rise this day. The stove perking the smell of nutrition. Get to your destination with planned unselfish acts. Bulletin board read, do you have any to spare? Happiness and understanding. We all have experienced that one phone call, family member, coworker, friend has passed on. We don't know our last evening or morning. Get up, help someone out. Now walk it out. You got up this morning. This has been the DLD Motivational Moment. You can reach out to DLD at DLD282002 at yahoo.com or 813-394-5875.
And before we get on to our man Clint as he goes to I want to let people know this is not a manufactured voice of mine. I've had this voice since seventh grade. I mean, I'm just saying. And people think all the time, why you? But I've had the same voice since seventh grade. I woke up one morning,
there it was,
and so I mean, either you like it or you don't.
Got it.
The grown man voice.
Absolutely, but it didn't pay off like that.
Voice made for radio.
All right, let's go, Clint. You
all
got
right, okay. So let's put a pin in this thing with the Supreme Court situation. So my thoughts are, it's politically more beneficial to nominate Michelle Childs because Biden needs to reaffirm and strengthen that base going into these midterms. It will be a great boost, I think, for him to do so. Now, let me say this though. It is incredible to me. University of South Florida is it's a good, solid university, state university school in a university system. But the reality of it is, in the state of Florida, people think of it way, way behind the University of Florida as a flagship school, Florida State University, and in some contexts, they think of it secondary to Florida A&M University as well. When you think about the distinguished alums, particularly in the black community, the fact that you got a predominantly white institution to produce someone now, a black person, to be considered for the Supreme Court, I think lifts the status of the University of South Florida and what it can do for black students. Your thoughts about that, Pete?
No, that was just a happenstance. When you look at the history of USF, it's never been conducive. And I told Jerry Bell and some of the people that in the black.
Now, I went to USF, right?
Right.
I'm a USF product.
Yeah. When you look
I'm a proud boy. His wife is too. Okay, my wife is too.
When you look at
ganging up on you, people.
But when you look at the overall history of USF and how they've treated black students, it's way behind. And so what has happened is when on the campus or a lot of the stuff, even remember the struggles that, in fact, Otha Favors and Otis Anthony and all them, they actually tried to run them out of the school just to get a black student union and some basic things.
That's America, though. That's not unique to University of South Florida.
You mentioned USF as all the schools.
What year we talking? What year that like 68,
but
69?
It has not changed. It has not changed that much. I remember a guy. His mother was a reporter and everything. The late Miss Dorothy Boger, her son Ernest Boger, who later set up the hospitality program at Bethune-Cookman, by the way. When he went to USF and all, he was the first one doing something. But it was a struggle.
That's America, though. That school is no different than America.
But what they do is that they promise to improve, and they really don't. See, one of the problems with USF, before we go on to our next subject, USF had a provost that really was fake as far as what he believed in diversity and all. And the black leadership, elected leadership, of the legislature and all like that, they never call USF out. The only elected official in the last 40, 50 years or whatever with USF that really tried to hold their feet to the fire, only two, Sean Shaw and Darrell Rouzan.
All right, real quick.
Okay, I just want to say, because we got to tell the whole story.
Well, I'm going to tell a little bit more of that story then.
Let me just say one thing before you start, because I know you can talk, Clint. That is, Michelle Childs needs to be selected by Biden because the black community is looking at Joe Biden to see if he is going to reward Congressman Clyburn for his support. And if he does not, and he selects somebody else, that's all well and good. But he's lost. He's going to lose a block of people because he didn't support Clyburn when Clyburn supported him.
Yes, yeah.
Well, the other thing is, whether y'all realize it or not, the other part of it is that because it's an off-year election, it's not going to make a difference because the black community is not consistently has never been motivated.
Stop trying. That's like a. That's
the
like,
record speaks for itself.
But that's
All right,
by saying that, that's a backwards way of trying to suppress the black vote. We're not going to fall for it.
It's the
We're not going to fall for it.
If you want to vote, you vote every election.
So now let me say that. I'm going to say this about USF because it's my alma mater.
All right.
It is America. It has every wart, stump, scar, scratch, claw, scab that America has. It is not a progressive school with a progressive mindset for how can it be more inclusive and affirm the academic process for African Americans. But in spite of that, it produced Michelle Child. That's what I'm trying to say. It's kind of like some kids that say, "Well, my parents, they didn't give me new shoes, and they didn't give me this, and they didn't give me that." But in the process of whatever they did do, they prepared you to be successful. That's what I'm saying.
That's a rarity at USF. Even when the employment practice. See, I look at the whole picture. I'm happy that you went to USF. But that is so rare there.
I disagree. I actually, when I was at that school, you had probably, I think we had 750 black students. That number is quadrupled now. The people in positions like the dean of pharmacy over there, Kevin Sneed, and some of the other folks at the school. I just think that, and I won't hold that school to a mirror from 1962. I'm not going to do that. I want to say it is America. It has fallen way short of all the things you're talking about. And you mentioned Sean Shaw and Darryl Roussan. I'm just going to throw this out. That came out of a long process run by Toba to gather information, document it, and present it to them and say, listen, guys, look at this documentation. What kind of pressure can you put on it? All right, let's move on. Now,
okay.
All right, let's go. So we have our man, Brian Flores, down in Miami. He's coaching. Brother man had a winning season, and he got let go. And now he's went out and said, well, fine, I'll just go get myself another job. That's what he thought he'd do. He just put his name in the hat, and doors are shut everywhere. And we heard this from Tony Dungy. He just wasn't willing to take legal action. He got turned down repeatedly. And I think when the Bucks hired Tony Dungy, he was their third choice. They tried to get. I thought they had tried to get. Was it?
They had signed to get. I think Bill Parcells was coming.
They tried to get 3 different people, and they finally said, "Okay, fine, we'll take Tony Dungy." And Dungy talked about, "Listen, I was the same guy before that, and so on." But now we have Brian Flores coming out saying basically this: the NFL is just giving window dressing when it comes to considering African American football coaches for head coaching jobs and for executive positions. I think you have 1 black general manager, correct? And you have 1 black head coach. What are your thoughts about this Brian Flores lawsuit? And is it connected to what Colin Kaepernick went through?
I'm proud of Flores. I saw the interviews on Get Up and also when he was on, I believe, on CBS News. I think it was Gail King or somebody. But anyway, with regards to him, he's a hood brother, okay? So his upbringing taught him to stand in the gap and be tough. He realized that he was going to lose money the whole bit, but at the end of the day, he had to be at peace with himself, and he's looking out for the future. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that what he talked about, the boat issue, what he talked about, the $100,000 and all like that, I think he's right on all of that. I think the problem is he can't gather. See, when you're talking about sports, you can have brothers and sisters all over the country be made aware of the racism and denial and everything else. But guess what? They still going to go out and buy tickets for the game. They're still going to buy paraphernalia, not paraphernalia, I don't know where I'm thinking at today, but the clothing and what have you. And so he will not suffer as Kaepernick has suffered. I think Flores will, if he doesn't get the job with the Saints, I think he'll get a job somewhere and he'll get his money. And then I look to see him really at a distinguished HBCU coaching football in the future.
What you like floating the clouds, Pete? And come up with this stuff. Where
No,
you get this stuff from?
I think you're gonna.
I feel like I'm on a Johnny Carson episode.
No, I think he's gonna wind up at the
The great
HBCU.
Svengali is, he's.
But it's nothing new.
Where do you get this from,
All
though,
right,
Pete?
let me tell you, it's nothing new about them denying folks. They've been doing that.
I get that, but the issue is he is suing the NFL about his process.
He can't win that suit.
Now tell me why he can't win a process. And what do you mean by win?
I think the way the suit has filed, and they file it as a class action.
Right.
First of all, I don't think the courts will even let it get that
Certify that it's a class.
They won't do it because you got to have other people, and
You need 25 people.
Well, you're not going to have brothers come up to do that. You're not going to have.
I think you will. You know why? These are brothers that are not in the NFL anymore.
But
see, you're thinking about guys that think they still have dreams of being in the NFL.
You're not going to have it out of the other ones too, because here's the difference: age. If you had a brother that steps up 40 and under to support him, then I can see it. But the old dudes that's past 40, 45, they threw. They saw it as it was.
No.
Okay,
I
that's
disagree.
number one. You asked me a question.
I did.
Let me tell you the other part of it.
I did.
And you're a lawyer. You realize that in these kind of suits, a lot of times, because while you may have the framework, you don't have the substance within it. So I think it's going to be a summary judgment.
Well, let's back off the
and
legal
explain
piece.
that to the
Attorney Paris.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're an attorney.
Yes, I am.
Why do you think they'll win?
All right, here's why I think they'll win. This is about entertainment and image. And the NFL still has not really recovered from what happened with Colin Kaepernick, and that was purely based on race. Its unwillingness to allow a black quarterback to express his concerns about something unrelated to football. They suppressed that. That whole had nothing with football, administration of football, but they were uncomfortable with the imagery of their platform being used to promote something that concerned the black community. Let me say it again. The NFL owners in the NFL were uncomfortable with the NFL platform being used to promote a real issue that's affecting the black community. They're still trying to reel from that. In the process of trying to investigate what was going on at the Redskins, you end up jettisoning one of the most popular coaches with the fans, John Gruden. I think most teams right now are terrified of the idea that their private internal communications might get exposed. And it may not be about Brian Flores. It may be about somebody's secretary. It may be about somebody's wife. It may be about a business deal that somebody's engaged in. But they can't risk having that exposed. So what happens is this. The NFL then goes back and looks at its Rooney Rule. How do we go about giving people a fair chance? That's what they've got to go back and look at. Part of it was this idea of before you hire a new coach, you have to have an open and inclusive interview process where candidates come in, they get interviewed, you have to include African Americans, and then we make a choice. But what came out in that Bill Belichick text message was before Brian Flores interviewed, somebody had been selected.
Well, the Rooney Rule, before we go to break, the Rooney Rule was set up to be good, but since that time when they had 3 out of the original part, it's all been window dressing. At the end of the day, you as an owner, you pick who you want.
Well, let's talk about that. We're on the backside of this break. Intex News Radio, reality radio. Everybody can be a star. We'll be right back.
Straight up to...
Who doesn't love being number one? When your team's dominating the standings, or your favorite band rocks the charts at number one, it feels good, right? Kind of like how it feels when you have auto insurance with State Farm. Because making you feel like number one is an honor your local State Farm agent takes seriously. Through the good times and not so good, your State Farm agent's proud to be here to help life go right.
Call Herman White at 961-6661. That's 961-6661.
you've been injured, you deserve help from an attorney that knows how to handle your injury claim. This is attorney Clinton Paris from the law office of Clinton Paris. For over a decade, I worked for insurance companies, and now I use that knowledge and experience to help people that have been injured. For a free consultation, call me, attorney Clinton Paris, at 813-413-7924. That's 813-413-7924, or at parislawoffice.com. At the law office of Clinton Paris, we take the pain out of being hurt. Offices, Riverview.
Ray Williams Funeral Home, providing the highest quality, professional, and caring service for your family. Call Jeffrey Rhodes at 813-253-3419. That's 813-253-3419. Or visit him at 301 North Howard Avenue, Tampa, Florida. Ray Williams Funeral Home, for the finest care and quality service.
Well, I tell you what, we're back here on In Touch News, and the paper's out. We're on Facebook, all that kind of stuff, and we got a lot of stuff going, and so we're all over the world, Clint, and all over America.
Yes.
And someone, speaking of that, before we get, someone said, I heard you on In Touch Facebook said that we're headed for a racial war. I stand by that. But going back to Brian Forrest, you know what helped the Brian Forrest case? If John Gruden spilled the beans.
What's to
Now,
stop? What is to stop him?
Well, here's the thing. If I'm John Gruden, the way they treated me now, and he's probably been a party to a lot of that kind of
Communication exchanges and that kind
thing.
of right.
I say to hell with y'all. I'm gonna spill it all. Because remember now, he did work out a settlement with the Raiders, so he doesn't have to worry about his money. No, Gruden's not coming back into the National Football League, so he will do fine. As far as Flores go, people got to understand the NFL has this policy, but with regards to hiring, it still comes back to the owner. Look at what happened in Jacksonville.
Yeah, but that's okay though. I run a business. DJC runs a business. End of the day, I make my decision.
Correct.
But the law provides there's a process to ensure people are treated fair. The core issue here is, here's a guy coming in to interview for a job, and here's Bill Belichick congratulating somebody else on receiving that same job, which says to me, well, I'm really not interviewing. You're just checking the box. And so I think they have to go back. This has happened with affirmative action a lot. This happened with almost all programs. Over time, manipulative and ill-intended people change it. You look at what Social Security was set up to be. It's been changed into something else. Why? Because new people come along and decide, well, we want this to be a little, we think we can get advantage of it doing it differently. And so the Rooney Rule became, when they realized window dressing. I'm going to give you a great example. I had a client once that was asked to do some government work, and they were asked to provide what was called an affirmative action plan. And they said, we don't have such a plan. That's not, where do we do stuff? And so I went back to the government, and he said, hey, these guys don't have a affirmative action plan. And that's not something they want to have in the aura of how they make decisions. And I was told by this government official, make sure they understand they don't have to do anything with the plan. They just have to file it. Mm-hmm. Because that checked the box.
But that was the norm.
They filed the plan, and then their contract went forward with the government entity. All I'm saying is that's kind of how a lot of this stuff is. So the Rooney Rule has got to be, you got to interview these people, but you don't have to really consider them for the job. And that's what he's trying to get at. Now, I'm more concerned from the NFL. You come to my house when I'm not home, Pete, and just go rummaging through it. There's a lot of stuff in there I don't want you to find. There's a lot of stuff in there. That's the risk of a lawsuit. And it may not be this lawsuit. It could turn into what happened with John Gruden and the Redskins. And that's when everybody in the NFL is saying, hey, y'all need to shut this thing down, because guess what? That you can physically see it. You look across the NFL, you can see who's got the power, who's got the influence, who's making the decisions. And it's not one that, like the NBA, that has a greater level of diversity reflected in who's actually participating in the sport.
Well, I'll tell you why this lawsuit won't go further besides the summary judgment. People are forgetting, and if I'm the Giants, I got an ace in the hole. They interviewed black coaches before they interviewed Brian. So technically, it doesn't meet the smell test, but technically they're correct. They met the Maroney rule.
Yeah,
they
but
did interview,
that doesn't absolve them, though, of discriminating against him. If you brought him in with the on the onus that, listen, we're legitimately interviewing you for a job that we've already filled, they've got a problem.
Well, he didn't. The way he
and they got a
really,
problem with the fans. Because guess what? I'm gonna say it right here. I'm not watching the Super Bowl. I'm not gonna watch it. I'm not gonna buy any paraphernalia. I'm not gonna watch. I will watch the Buccaneers when they play. But as a general rule, until some of this gets cleaned up, I just can't.
They're not worried about that.
Yeah, they are.
Let me tell you, when Colin went through all his thing, they went through a period of time where, hey, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. And because of the black community has a history of being forgiven, after that little bit with Kaepernick, everybody went back to buying.
Because they paid the man some money, and they had a campaign of promoting social justice issues. So people felt, okay, they're trying to do something. But if they just say, they just smack this guy down on the head, I think that's.
It won't even get to the discovery process. So I tell you, me and my boy that calls in, we're gonna be eating a whole lot of lunches and dinners off of your down.
All right, listen. All right.
I'm just saying.
All right. Okay. Another thing that caught my eye this week,
All
Pete,
right.
I'm happy to know it, is that it looks like the COVID numbers are dropping drastically very quickly. The death numbers are still kind of strong. I think they said 2,400 people died yesterday. But across the board, the number of people getting COVID, the numbers are coming down very, very fast.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help Joe Biden? And how you think that, if it holds up, will impact the 22 elections?
I think
the midterms.
Well, again, it should help Biden, but I think what's going to help him is the economy is coming back. The job numbers, when you look at that,
400,000,
and when you look at, people are beginning to see that these companies are ripping off everybody.
Whoa! Now, what do you mean? What do you mean
with the high profits and all?
But what's that? Why you say that's ripping off?
Well, because
Mercedes costs what it costs. That's not a rip off. You can choose to buy something else.
What I mean is that if you look, when you see Ford, a major automobile company, has to go out and tell the dealers, say, "Hey, look here, y'all have gone beyond." No, the dealers have gotten so greedy. Ford had to.
But wait a minute. But see, Pete, when I say you're a socialist, this is where it comes from. This is where it comes from, Pete. That is so anti-Republican or free market capitalism.
Well, remember, Republicans, we have a wide range of how we think.
Okay.
Okay? Now, you asked me, I'm telling you
right,
that because it's an off-year election, it's not going to even matter. In fact, in 2024, whether we have a black female on there or not, and if it's Childs on there, in 2024, the voters, even black voters, will see that as something passing. So that's not going to motivate them to reelect Biden. I don't think he's going to run. I don't even think Kamala Harris is going to
Can we stay right
saying,
where we at, though? You down in 24, throwing
right.
the man out the
well,
window.
I've said over and over again in 20,
every chance you get, that which makes me think that it's just you want to say that. You want to remind people that you want him out.
In 2022, the black voters should make a difference, but they won't vote.
I think they will. You give us Childs, the campaign can be led around the country. Now we got one, let's get two. I can already give you now we got one, let's get two.
But where they're going to fall short at is reaching the masses of middle class and low income black voters that don't give a flip about the Child's nomination as much as they care about child tax credit, free
But
preschool.
but
care
okay,
and all
okay,
that.
stay with me
I'm
on that
just
now.
saying, I'm
But
just saying.
but so by voting for a Democrat, that gets them closer to that, you think?
What I'm thinking about,
And they still get it. Let me just say this.
they're going to send out
They
the election.
they don't get it every month, but it's still, you get it at the end of the year, and that's where they get those $6,000 and $8,000 and $10,000 tax returns, as opposed to getting the $250 a month for each child. They still get the money. It's just when you get it.
The thing that concerns me the most is the possible terrorism that can be at the voting line.
That's the other
during
part.
That's I'm concerned about that more than anything else.
Now, you think that's a real concern?
I think
Yeah,
that's
why you think in
And
Florida,
when we say terrorism, you mean intimidation.
That's what I meant.
let's
even
say-
with the
yes,
election
intimidation.
officers, look,
But I'm talking intimidation with guns. That's a problem.
look, it's coming. You see it in the state legislature where the governor said he wants this election officers or whatever. That's intimidation. As I tell people all the time, the good Republicans, for the most part, have turned independent. There's a few of us left that's within the
keep the
struggle.
name. You keep the.
Yeah, but the thought process is
There's a
But
word
re-
for those people, Pete.
well,
People
they,
who
they
are
can call them
Republicans
rhinos or
who,
whatever.
I wouldn't say, I wouldn't slur anybody, but
Rhinos?
I didn't say. See, I'm not gonna use that word because that's not.
That's a bad word.
I don't know. I'm not.
Well,
a
how
Republican.
about
I'm not a Republican. Though.
how about Dinos? Same thing.
Yeah, I don't know about those. I don't know what those are.
But I'm telling you,
Yeah.
telling you that when you look at the consistency of off-year elections, and when you look at the percentage of black voters, see, to me, during off-year elections, not even the upper-class black women who really support the Democratic cause, regardless, they bring out the vote and all, their percentages drop during an off-year election. So it tells our people, our young people that are coming up, hey, we only party for a presidential election. Outside of that, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying.
Here's what I think is really hurting your analysis, Pete. Your analysis is too historical. This country has drastically changed in recent years, and that's why Donald Trump could be elected, because of that change, and the system didn't catch it. They were too busy. That's why Obama could be elected. The system had changed. Hillary was checking with all the major donors saying, are you guys going to support this guy? And Obama was collecting $10 a person off the internet. And no, they couldn't see that. I think you're right with the historical perspective of the midterms. I think that's changed. I think the midterms now, because of things like, because the Senate is so tight, it becomes much more significant that midterms matter. They used to didn't matter as much. You didn't have that much of a change. You know why? I'm going to tell you why. Because it used to be that Democrats and Republicans actually worked together to try to solve problems and promote legislation. Now everybody spends all their time trying to reaffirm their base. They spend all their time. This week we had your friends in the Republican National Committee vote to censure Liz Cheney and who's the other gentleman on the committee? Right, for their prosecution of law-abiding Americans, whatever that doggone thing was. And they didn't do that because that has anything to do with any kind of policy. It just makes the base feel good about themselves. It is the great flaw of democracy, is that you have to always play to the majority. And when the majority becomes mob-minded, you're now having to do mob-minded stuff like Marjorie Taylor Greene. So I think that really, to me, I think is the big thing. DJC, are we taking a last break?
All right,
let's take that break. And when we come back, Pete, we're gonna take this break. We're gonna come back and we're gonna set the stage for what people can expect next week on the national political scene. Interaction News Radio. You gonna give us a song, Pete? You gonna sing for the peoples? Sing to the peoples, Pete.
Well,
get the people. Interaction. We'll be right back.
Love and happiness.
This brutal weather that we experience every year in Florida leaves hundreds of residents needing repairs to their property. If your home has been damaged or needs remodeling, leave it to the professionals. Call Reeves Building, Plumbing, and Roofing at 813-238-6197. That's 813-238-6197. Reeves Building, Plumbing, and Roofing have been serving the community for 43 years. Reeves Building, Plumbing, and Roofing is a proud sponsor of Jazz at Miss Connie's house.
Who doesn't love being number one? When your team's dominating the standings, or your favorite band rocks the charts at number one, it feels good, right? Kind of like how it feels when you have auto insurance with State Farm. Because making you feel like number one is an honor your local State Farm agent takes seriously. Through the good times and not so good, your State Farm agent's proud to be here to help life go right.
Call Herman White at 961-6661. That's 961-6661.
You've been injured, you deserve help from an attorney that knows how to handle your injury claim. This is Attorney Clinton Paris from the Law Office of Clinton Paris. For over a decade, I worked for insurance companies, and now I use that knowledge and experience to help people that have been injured. For a free consultation, call me, Attorney Clinton Paris, at 813-413-7924. That's 813-413-7924, or at parislawoffice.com. At the Law Office of Clinton Paris, we take the pain out of being hurt. Offices, Riverview.
Yeah. This is Black History Month. Every day is Black History, folks. Every day, whether you like them because they're Republican, Independent, Democrat, none, fine, none, or whatever. Every day we're making Black history. Some good, some bad, some indifferent, the whole bit. So we have to, as we go into this month of Black history, I remind our audience that we can't really deal with our other enemies until we straighten out what's going on in our community. Crime rate is going up, jobs are available, but people are getting carjacked the whole bit. What they did to that old man that they ran over and that kind of stuff.
No, give the background.
I'm looking at the crime rate in our community is going sky high. Children aren't safe to be on the street. Little kids continue. They robbed a black man. You probably saw his picture on the news in a suit and all, 7, 8 years old. They robbed and ran over him and all that kind of stuff. That's in our community. And I've always said that worst of white people we can't deal with until we strengthen our numbers in our community. And the only way you do that is you clean up. See, there's some black folks that think we ought to give a pass to criminals in our community because of all the other issues and because they're black. You can't do that because you cannot build power.
So you're so now you sound Republican. So you're for strong law enforcement to combat the crime.
Well, I'm like Eric Adams, the new guy, the new mayor in New York. This guy, remember, he led the fight to improve black policemen's standing in New York, so he understands it. But I'm telling you, if we're going as this thing, the base of Trump and all this expand and the intimidation at the polls and all like that, we have to re-educate our community.
Okay, all right,
that
Pete,
we
stop,
cannot tolerate crime in our community.
Yeah, but that's stuff being led by Republicans. That's your party, Pete. You don't get to be over here talking about us, how we need to solve.
But I'm saying,
what's being done in your party though to address those issues?
Well,
what are Republicans doing to address what the Republicans are doing?
Well, look. It's not about that.
I know it is a fact though. Republicans are the governor's Republican. The governor's proposing these things, and we have a Republican legislature in place. So you're saying somehow the Democratic minority.
Well, here's what I'm saying. When you look at the millennials and younger, the coalition building is different.
I agree.
We don't.
We talked about that, Pete.
Yeah.
You don't have desegregation. You don't have people riding on we don't have those concrete. But you saw this when you saw that concrete issue around George Floyd. You saw the coalition come together. It had a nice concrete issue it could grab itself to.
But they hadn't sustained it
because you got the conviction.
No, you got.
And how about this though? You hadn't had anybody else killed like that since.
Well, yeah, you did. Well, you actually had a case in Minnesota. Recently, day before yesterday, on the St. Paul Police Department asked to serve a warrant for murder or something in an apartment in Minneapolis. And the Minneapolis police said, hey, we're not going to do it unless it's a no-knock warrant. So they go in, guy sleeping on his couch, all wrapped up, had a gun, and they knock the door down, and he gets scared, and they shoot and kill him, and he wasn't even the guy that was on the warrant. And the same Minneapolis police said, we're not going, no, not. So that's why you have to stay consistent. My problem is when I talk to young people, young adults, and you say, hey, we need you to vote. We need you to do this role. Even when I catch them coming out the wig store, because those folks don't give nothing back to the community, they can't identify with it. They don't want to identify with it because they don't see consistency of the black leadership in our community. And I'm saying to you, any criminal justice reform, any additional judges like Childs, and all that's going to fall apart because we won't deal in what we need to do to clean out. In every community, you have criminals. We won't do what we're supposed to do to clean them out. There are some people that just make money on being criminals.
I agree. So not doing something else until that problem is solved, I think is not, the most constructive way to go at it.
How you sustain it? How
you have to have you have to have the issue now. You don't have that anymore. And that's no different than doing the civil rights movement. Once they let people off the back of the bus, there was no reason to keep the bus boycott going. The bus boycott ended. I mean, it's just that simple. And so it's real. I agree, though, Pete, but I think, I'm going to say it now, I think Republicans have to hold Republicans more accountable. All these voter suppression actions are being led by Republican groups. And Republicans aren't dealing with that. Where you have Democrats in a minority, and let me say this, you don't have that in any state where Democrats are the majority. It's only in states where Republicans have a majority. And
now
I know
look at the background.
Real quick, before we go, I got to bring this up. I'm going to let you off the hook about it.
All right, I appreciate that.
How far is this fight going to go between Donald Trump and Mike Pence? Now that it's out in the open, who you think will prevail?
Well, it's obvious from Mike Pence's comments last night, he's on the same team with Donald Trump. Now, he said that Donald was wrong about the January 6th.
What he could do.
Right. All right. But then he come back and said, in a way, when it came down to the selection of a black female judge. So that put him back in the camp. It's a ruse. All of it's a ruse. And that the Republican Party has been hijacked by extremists. But I remind people, some of the most racist elected officials I've ever had to deal with in Tampa, some of the most racist ones have been Democrats.
Right, but we're talking about
saying,
right. But you've been around a long time.
Yeah, I'm just
you've
saying,
been around a long
I've
time.
seen it all.
We will assume that racists are everywhere.
Yeah, thank you.
Even in the black community,
you
have people who have racist tendencies. And that we'll leave that where it is. And I'm not talking race right now because
we'll bring that back.
Well, because from a political standpoint, I think this thing has a chance because there are more, I would call them regular Republicans who stand with Mike Pence. And then you have the extremists with Donald Trump. And I don't think the two of them, the way this thing is starting to come to the surface, will play out.
I think Mike Pence made that statement so that he can soften the blow when he sits in front of the January 6th committee, because he's going to testify.
You think?
Well, he has to if he wants if he wants to redeem himself and wrestle the nomination from DeSantis and Trump, he has no choice to do that.
I don't see him running. I don't see him. He's not marketable.
But
he really is too. I would say this: Mike Pence is too principled. He has too many values that he lives his life by that have nothing to do with the facts around him. This is just what I do. I do these things. Boom, boom, And so for that reason, politics requires, and one politician said to me once, you know why I can win? I said, why? He said, because I can lie more than the other guy can. He can't tell a lie.
Yeah. Well,
now think about that.
Pence will be, I think, on the ticket, believe it or not, I think Pence and Tim Scott be the ticket for the Republican Party in 2020.
That is an absolute loser. Black people will turn out in droves to vote against Tim Scott.
But
they will turn out in droves. I mean, I'm talking, they will turn out, Pete, in droves to vote against.
You heard me, Mr. DJ.
Them.
You heard what I said. The best way for the Republicans to win a cross-selection of voters will be, out of the primary, will be Pence and Tim Scott.
No, if you did, what's the lady's name from Carolina? I can't think of it.
Haley.
If Nikki Haley and Pence run. But if you put, listen, Tim Scott is almost reviled as much as Clarence Thomas is.
He should be.
But I'm just I don't know if there's a benefit. And you right now, you really need something to hold on to that group of black voters that came over with Donald Trump that drifted back after he got in office. He lost some of those people. He lost some. So you need somebody to bring Tim Scott doesn't bring those people back. We only got a couple minutes, Pete, to finish it.
All right,
Close us out with something people can look for in Black History Month.
For Black History Month, the school system will be in the next 2 weeks having to name another school out in Apollo Beach. One of the major names being floated about is Dorothy York.
Yes.
Excellent person and all like that, but I don't think that they will name a black person. They did that with Warren Dawson.
You got Warren Dawson out there.
But they're not going to do
it. You got Pride up in New Tampa.
Yeah, when you look at the school board here, no, I don't think you're going to get a black person name Miss York name for that school. It's election time. It's a whole
I would
lot
say
of
not. I would say also because Apollo
she
Beach.
deserve it.
Well, let me say this. People don't realize Apollo Beach has a lot of long history.
Right.
It's not like, let's say, the other side of 301 in Riverview, where that area is all new. Everybody down there just showed
and they
up.
just call it all Riverview.
Yeah. But that's not Apollo Beach. Is not that. Apollo Beach is an old enclave of resort living and retirement communities, and it hasn't been hit as hard by the progression of black folks out of the inner city.
All right, so we're gonna get out of here. Be careful. A lot of road construction and all, and make sure that you do your part to help somebody along the way. I tell people all the time.